morning, everyone, and welcome. My guest today says his leadership style is a mix of American marketing, European management, and Asian emotional intelligence. And over the past 6 years, international hotelier Puneet Chhatwal has turned around the loss-making Indian hotel company and brought it out of the throes of the pandemic to talk about his vision for IHCL in general and the hospitality sector. We're here at the Hotelier Conference, and I'd like you to raise a warm round of applause as I welcome the Chief Executive of IHCL, Mr. Puneet Chhatwal. Mr. Chhatwal, welcome. And how we're going to do this session is that there is a deck that we've been working with the folks at IHCL, which captures some of the trends in the hospitality sector. So I'll take you through them. Hopefully you can catch it at the back. Mr. Chhatwal's already seen the deck, so hopefully he doesn't need to see it again. And then we can talk about the macro trends as we then come down to what's happening specifically at IHCL. So what stood as being very interesting to me, Mr. Chhatwal, and I'll start from there, is the fact that you're seeing and predicting a very sharp swing from hospitality as being a very tier 1 urban concept to moving to tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So if you look at the chart behind you, the point that's being made is, as of now in FY23, tier 2 and tier 3 is only 38%. Tier 1 is the bulk of what is left. As you move forward, based on the supply that's building up between 23 and 28, that is changing quite dramatically, where you actually see tier 2 in this becoming 60% of the overall availability of hotel rooms, and tier 1 then just stays at 40. So explain why you're seeing this happen and how do you hope to capitalize on it?
So firstly, good morning everyone. I think India is changing, and yesterday I was at a session where I heard the chief economic advisor speak, and one of the things he mentioned was 7 in 7. That means 7 trillion economy in 7 years. That means by 2030. And he also gave some statistics of how 220 billion in 93 became more than 3 trillion in 2023. Despite the change in exchange rates, and the dollar used to be 39 and it became 83, still all that was doable. So I think the main important point is, if I was to summarize, I would say 4 or 5 things that are driving this radical change is having an impact outside of the traditional metros, the traditional resorts, and that is the investment of the government in infrastructure. See, your Udan scheme with 50 new airports, your Prasad scheme, your focus on spiritual tourism, etc., that's driving growth which we have not seen before. The second is, when the world is slowing down, India is growing at 6.5%, or expected to grow at 6.5. That's not enough, as we all know, for the per capita income to rise. It should be more than 9 in an ideal world, but it's still a luxury problem compared to the others. So that 6.5 cannot just come from the metros. It has to come from other cities. The third thing is all these new destinations that
do you see AI having in impacting, shaping how the hospitality sector moves from here?
I think it's more related to how you process the pre-arrival of the guest, to how you follow up with the guests. I think one of our strengths in our sector, does not matter, luxury hotels or first-class hotels, in Asia in general and India in particular, is our Asian hospitality. And I think we are still very far from AI replacing that human touch. It is an enabler. So machine learning, AI, digital is an enabler, but not the way forward in terms of the short term. Mid to long term is a very different story. So I think a lot of AI is already being leveraged, especially by let's say OTAs. It's being leveraged on our own websites. All companies' websites are using a lot of those kind of digital enablers, and also for upselling, also for all the guest contact post stay. That all happens through digital medium, and that is only going to increase. But still we are far away the touch of the chef for the nice evening that Bhuvnesh ji announced for this event tonight. And that food, the service, I doubt if we'll have robots running around and say, here is your cup of tea or coffee. I mean, it will happen one day, but not in the short term.
Now, among the trends that is enabling the demand for higher infrastructure is the fact that you just have many more people traveling. So this is air passenger traffic and domestic tourism. So you've got domestic tourism on the right side, you've got air passenger on the left. And some of these, you mentioned the Udan scheme, some of these are passengers traveling for the first time. How is the typical profile of the consumer at your different hotel chains changing? Earlier it used to be a certain level of sophistication. Are you seeing that change, and how are you adapting? It was a very high level of aspiration, very high level of this being a new India, and for these tourists to want to be a part of that new India story. So how are you adapting to that?
I think it's about comprehensive brand management, and each organization needs to see what kind of businesses they want to be in and what kind of brands they have. For us, from Ginger to Taj Palaces and Safaris, I do believe we cater to all segments, and including homestays. So I think that profile is changing, but mostly for the good. Even if there are people who are first-time travelers, I think the per capita income is rising. And if we hit those growth rates of 9% plus for a few years in a row, the per capita income could cross 20,000 rupees. And I think that's the most important factor, where the growth and the per capita is related. And with the per capita comes the disposable income. And with the disposable income comes the discretionary spend. And based on the latest study of McKinsey worldwide, the highest beneficiary of that is restaurant business, and number 3 was hotels and leisure.
So one of the questions about the management style and approach that you've adopted in your 6 years with IHCL is that you've tried to diversify from being more narrow-jacketed in terms of what the organization was trying to approach, to diversifying into homestays, to going to expanding your mid-level, low-level present offerings or mid-level offerings, and then trying to stay high-end. So is the IHCL on your watch trying to do too much, and does that then run the risk of taking away from the core and taking away from what the average consumer would typically expect from a hotel stay at the Taj?
In theory, yes. I could just deny it. But I think the best thing is for the figures to talk. So we have been always known as the Taj Group, the Taj. It's been the crown jewel, not just of our company and the group, the Tata Group, but it's been the crown jewel of India. So having said that, Taj, firstly I have to say something for all the people in this room. If you were to name any brand that is recognized outside of India, it will only come from hospitality. I've also made statements that there will be at least 3 brands from India in near term which will rate among the top 10 hotel brands in the world. Now, 3 years in a row, Taj has been rated as world's strongest hotel brand, twice as number 1, once as number 4, but India's strongest brand across all sectors. So where is the risk? The risk is if you're not number 1, you might be number 2. I think it's only gone up. And I think the important part was our founder gave the name Indian Hotels Company, and there is a long story behind it. Why he called the company Indian Hotels Company, which is the full form of IHCL. If nobody used it, that was an opportunity. We are not here to criticize why nobody used it. It's something very special and unique. And we always said we are the custodians of Indian hospitality. So if you're having that Indian and hospitality and Indian Hotels Company, that's how we were listed. That's how we have been, on the stock exchange for 120 years. For 122 AGMs have happened under the short form IHCL. So we just started using it, and the rest just followed. There was no second-class citizen anymore. So it was like Taj or a little bit of Taj. Taj, Vivanta by Taj, or Taj Vivanta, or Taj Gateway. We just got rid of it. And actually, most of the companies did. So basically, to make it long story short, it's a move which was very well thought through from a branded house to a house of brands. And the way India is positioned today and the way it is expected to grow in this Amrit Kal till for the 100 years, India at 2047. But even if we take a pit stop of India at 2030, you cannot be operating with one brand in India. It's just not possible. Or be a bit of that brand everywhere. So that's the first lesson in marketing. Don't try to be all things to all people. And I think we just very carefully cut that, and it has helped our brands to thrive. And I'm very excited actually to share with the audience 371 room Ginger branded property in Santa Cruz, Mumbai should open. We all know the challenge of licenses and all, whether it opens Monday or it opens in a Monday after a week or in a few weeks on a Monday or a Saturday or a Friday, but the opening is imminent. It's like 3 to 4 weeks. It will redefine that entire positioning in this country. I'm saying it, as they say in Latin, cora publicum, in front of the entire public. So I have difficulty facing all of you if this did not happen.
In what way do you see it?
Because it's all about hospitality is not just luxury, it's a basic human need. People don't travel just because they're on a holiday. People travel because they have work to do. People travel to Mumbai and either they come back with a late night flight or they have to come next day. No, everybody doesn't have to stay in Taj Mahal Palace in Colaba. You have work there, you have work in BKC, you have work in Vikhroli, or you have work in Goregaon, you do that work and you come back. So I think that whole perception is also changing. This is not about just 2-3 luxury brands at the top. All brands, international or national, have a space, have a need. There is demand for it. And I think especially at the lower segment, at the lower end of that pyramid we called it, I think that is going to change. You'll have a feel you're in a good place. You have everything that you get in a luxury property, but it's affordable for everyone. To your initial point.
Have you had pushbacks from your team? Some of your teammates are here and otherwise in terms of
yes, not
you're
open.
diluting our brand. This is not what the Taj is. This is how we come, and you're now just making us more lowbrow than we were.
Yes, but in India they don't do it openly, so there was a pushback initially. I call them silent warriors, very silently, like put it on hold. God knows what's going to come. But I think today everyone is proud and everyone has grown. So, the results, you can keep talking, but what counts at the end of the day is figures don't lie. What is objective is, do you have measurable results which you can communicate to people? Emotions, yes, you can, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. After some time, it has to be tangible result that people can see.
So most of what we've spoken about so far has been dependent on domestic travel, where the Indian citizen is going for puja, he's going for darshan, or he's going for holidays. And as you can see this graph, post the pandemic, the number of foreign tourists arriving into our country has dropped quite calamitously. It is kind of now beginning to pick up. Where do you see this trend line going, and how has the absence of foreign tourists impacted the domestic hospitality sector?
Firstly, I have to say domestic has been very strong, not just in India, in every country. The recovery in our sector was led by domestic. It doesn't matter whether it's Germany or UK or US or India. After post-COVID, the recovery came mainly through domestic or regional. If you talk about continental Europe, it was very regional tourism that drove the recovery. International is very important. It's the highest foreign exchange earner. So I think it's important. India has a lot to show and leverage. And one great thing that has happened is the way India and the government did the G20. It has only strengthened the Indian image outside of India. And I think that is more lasting than just one campaign. And if we continue to have all these large events that we are having now, the World Cup followed by the Miss World, and leverage this conference space that has been built, I think we'll get more and more foreign tourist arrivals in India, whether they come for business or they come on leisure. And of course, there is certain unique things that we have which no one else has. So the Indian diaspora outside of India is also growing, and they also want to come and see Ayodhya, or they want to come to holy city of Banaras, or whatever else, whatever your faith might be. And that part is growing also much faster than we can imagine. So I think what used to be like 10, 11 million will easily double in the next 3 to 4 years. Of course, this morning I woke up to a message that there is a warning from US not to travel or restrict travel. So there will always be these kind of headwinds that come, and then there'll be a little blip, and then you keep moving up. But definitely in India, the foreign tourist arrival is
I'm very curious
going
to know
up.
about the average profile of a foreign tourist who walks into one of your group hotels. How have you seen that change from at this moment to much before the pandemic?
So one of the things that has changed significantly in the last 12 months, maybe we have had 3 times more global companies CEOs visit in the last 12 months than, let's say, pre-COVID in the preceding 3 years, 17, 18, 19. It doesn't matter whether they were from investment banking background or they were from manufacturing. You also have a lot of heads of states, if you see. You have had government officials, let's say, of ministers, high-ranking ministers coming from Germany and making digital payment on a street vendor in Bangalore. Those pictures became viral. So I think there is a lot of interest in the way India has moved on digitally, the way India is expected to grow. And I actually personally believe it seems that in the new geopolitical order, it is very much desired that India becomes stronger to find that balance in this part of the world.
There's so many hoteliers sitting here at this. When you step into somebody else's hotel, what's your worst nightmare? What is it that scares you the most? What is it that worries you the most?
Try to hide that nobody sees me, but including this morning here, the moment you get out of the car till you walk till the hall, you are just greeted with so much of warmth. It's difficult to hide. So there is no time to worry because there are people surrounding you and reminding you where they last saw you. And then my standard answer is, I'm sorry, I'm getting old, I don't remember everything, but that's an honest answer. This happened this morning.
3 hotel groups from India being part of the top
3 hotel brands.
3 hotel brands becoming part of the top 10 global hotel brands. What is it that some of the others are doing where you feel that I wish I'd latched on to that idea?
Taj has always been there. I don't think, when I say 3 of the top brands that I'm adding like a Ginger or something else in the short, medium term, or a Vivanta, that's not it. But there are brands, from other companies, other listed companies, and it's not appropriate for me to talk about, but they have been rated consistently by Travel and Leisure or by Brand Finance or by other, branding organizations among the top. But we need to get more consistency, that they are consistently rated, and I think that will come. So Rajiv is here, he's had that accolade of being strongest brand, and there are other of colleagues from his past, other branded groups. We should be proud. No matter what, one thing that differentiates hospitality sector to all sectors is only our hospitality brands have made it international.
You've run hotel chains in Europe, Northern America. When you look at your experiences from there and here, what is it that makes you want to tear your hair apart about something which is going right in Europe which you're not able to do here? And what is it that you think India can teach Europe and North America about hospitality?
But that's easy.
From your personal experience.
India's point of view is really the hospitality is mostly from the heart. So I think we say dil se, that part is just very unique and very special. So that obviously the West can learn. But as you said in the opening remarks, I actually believe that the marketing strength of the US and the US brands, the management in very difficult terrains, this Europe or the European Union is a lot of small countries when you compare to India with a lot of different languages, and they manage quite well. So I think that's something that they've done very well in terms of managing, and the costs are very high. This is not a US kind of a cost structure. You have a lot of sometimes people say, how is Europe going to afford those kind of social systems? I mean, they're fantastic social systems when it comes to healthcare, your pensions, etc. So your cost of employment is pretty large, but they manage with lesser number of people because the skilling of the people. You know, if you go to a German system and you do a German apprenticeship, you're just as perfect as you can be as a barman or as a cook or as a baker. You know that job inside out. And I think one thing which we can learn from the West is that kind of focus on skilling, but also on consistent delivery on quality. That is possibly better. Where they can learn is smile a bit, be a little bit at ease. It's okay to hug. I think our Prime Minister is doing a good job. He sees, you know, he's
Brand
seeing,
ambassador of global hugging.
yeah, he's hugging all the global leaders. It never happened before, right? And
So given how many years you spent internationally, are you here for good? Are you here temporarily? Do you see yourself go back? Are you here to stay?
any comment I make as a publicly listed company in that to its silent period is wrong. I think I'm blessed to have had the best of all the worlds. The exposure to the American system of marketing and living in Europe and having grown up in India. And you know, I always say it proudly, actually I've, with Mr. Kachru here, you know, we started at the Ashok and Ashok group of hotels. When he was heading hotels division, I was a management trainee. And had we not had that training, that exposure of what I said, Asian Games, NAM, Chogam, strikes, running a hotel when the staff walks out. You know, this was Kanishk, which is now the Shangri-La, I think. I mean, all the staff walked out. We were running that hotel for 1 month without the staff and the same revenue level. So that gives you the resilience, that
So one
gives you
last
the
question
knowledge.
before I wrap up. For anybody who may watch this on social or digital later, what's your advice to that hotel management trainee, whether he's at the Ashok or at the Taj, who may be watching you now, seeing where you've reached after having started out from the floor to the chief executive suite? What is that one thing that you think he should know and keep in mind as he plans his career from here?
Well, I can't say that one thing, but I'll just say that there is no substitute for hard work. And the second comes, which is a few of us in this room as our favorite, is never ever give up. And I think if you do those two things and have a much larger vision, you know, I would have never thought I would be where I reached, not just now, but even before. Our horizon used to be F&B manager, hotel GM, maybe a GM of a small hotel in India or a F&B manager in Dubai or something like this. And it kept changing. Then maybe having a good name in development in Europe, so you're like a director of development, Europe, Middle East, Africa. But things keep changing, and I think one thing I've learned definitely in the last 6 years under the leadership of our group chairman is don't be so narrow in your vision. Learn to think big.
And for somebody who says he started out wanting to be an F&B manager, you've done more than just well. Thank you very much, Puneet Chhatwal.
Thank you, Rahul.
For your
Thank you.
time
Thank
and
you.
for this conversation.
Thank you.
you.